Welcome to the Idea Counter, where we talk about brick and mortar creative ideas. I wanted to bring to you guys some interesting retail ideas. We have Alfred Nicolai here, and he's here to discuss a little bit about hearing aids, which I found fascinating, which I'd love to share with you guys. Glad he was willing to come on the podcast and excited to have you here. Alfred, why don't you introduce yourself
Yeah,
for us?
thank you, Alex. Thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate it. My name is Alfred Nicolai. I became a licensed hearing aid specialist a little over 4 years ago. And it was luck of the draw that I ended up in this field. And just like you, when it was introduced to me, I found it to be incredibly fascinating.
Yeah,
But
that's
yeah,
that's
no,
awesome,
thanks for
man.
having me on, man. I'm really excited to
I,
be
w-
here.
I want to share some stats with you that I found impressive. That's why I kind of brought you on the podcast. Here's a couple of stats. The global hearing aid market was valued at $8.4 billion in 2021, and it's projected to reach 14.7 billion by 2030. This is a brick and mortar retail location that sells hearing aids, and it's growing at a 5.3 compounded annual growth rate. Here's what's even more fascinating. Almost half of that 8.4 billion is in the US alone. So you're talking just $4 billion. That's the market we're talking about,
Yeah, yeah.
which is amazing. And then hearing loss affects, from what I've seen here, hearing loss affects 1 in 3 people over the age of 65. The location that you're in now, tell us a little bit about what you're doing, your kind of your day to day and what that looks like. We can start there, talk about the customer interaction piece of it, and then we'll talk about the business side of it later. But I'd love to kind of get started there.
So the day to day operational side of it is actually fairly quite simple, right? Patients will come in, patients, they'll come in who are either experiencing some signs of hearing loss, whether it be a loved one telling them like, hey, you can't hear me, or friends, or they're starting to see themselves struggling in like social environments, right? And you're correct in those stats. 1 in 3 people are affected by hearing loss. Now, for a long time, these clinics were, I want to say, under marketed, and people didn't know what was going on. They just assumed that it was a part of getting old, and they didn't know, right? So one of the main things, and one of the only things we do, is patients will come in, they'll schedule an appointment, and they'll just simply get their hearing tested. You'll have a licensed provider, such as myself, give you a full hearing evaluation, which consists of what's called pure tone averages. Basically, at what decibels do you hear a certain tone across a spectrum of frequencies, followed by what's called MCL, most comfortable listening level, SRTs, speech reception thresholds, and word recognition. So we in that eval, we find all these objective numbers, right? There's two sides to hearing loss, and we're trained to find the objective measurement, exactly what it is that is going on. The reason why I say it's objective is there's a subjective nature to hearing loss, meaning you can have a hearing loss, I can have an identical hearing loss, but we both have two very different world experiences, right? You may perceive it much harder than I perceive it, but that's where our trained providers kind of are there to help establish exactly what is going on and if there is an issue that needs to be addressed. So our day to day is simply human interaction, getting an eval done. It's as simple and as basic as that. That's one side of it. The other side of it is hearing aid care, right? Existing hearing aid wearers, maintenance, software updates. I mean, hearing aids today are quite technological, and they got a lot of new tech in there. And as you know, and everyone who has an iPhone 16 and above, right, knows anytime new tech comes out, things go wrong all the time. So whereas our license was solely based on hearing loss testing and finding hearing loss or diagnosing a hearing loss, now all of a sudden has kind of grown to a larger scope. It's testing and evaluating hearing loss, but also diagnosing technological issues that are going on with the hearing aid. But it's as simple as that. There really isn't much more that happens in the brick and mortar, but it is a people business, right? Just like you would go to an eye doctor or an ophthalmologist or an optometrist, right? It's very similar to ear, nose, and throat doctor or a hearing aid specialist, an audiologist or a hearing aid specialist. We all do the same thing, just slightly different focuses.
That's awesome. So
Yeah.
now the other thing that I found interesting when I was talking to you about it was the amount of schooling you need for this, for you to be certified to handle this. Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So there's two routes that you can take, right? You can go to college, get a get your degree, and then go to medical school and you get your AUD. That is to become a doctor of audiology. Or with a high school diploma, you can do a basically like a journeyman internship. It's about a year and a half long. And the main difference is that we can't prescribe medicine, but we do the same job that a doctor of audiology can do. And we understand the same intricacies of the ear and hearing loss and things that can go wrong with your ear. It's just that we can't prescribe medicine. So it's kind of like a shortcut in a
Got it.
weird way. Now, every state has different requirements, Florida being one of the easier ones, but it is still a pretty stringent practical that you have to pass. Right, and you only have so many chances to pass it. But really, all it comes down to is your ability to understand the information and then be able to relay it in a way that's understandable to the patient or customer, right? Some clinics call them customers, some clinics call them patients. I like to refer to them as patients. I do believe that our degree and our license, it is a medical board license. So, I view my people as patients, as someone I need to care for and someone I need to help with a health issue. Hearing has been linked to so many other underlying mental and cognitive functions that, it's a medical atmosphere. It just has this retail aspect to it.
Is it an ever changing industry? Because now with AI coming out, I mean, are these things changing? Are they getting even better than they have in the past?
So recently, in the coming years, in the last year alone, yes, as technology advances with the rest of the world, so does everything else, right? So hearing aids in the last 8 years, in a very short period of time, have advanced leaps and bounds to what they once were. Unfortunately, is that the information about it hasn't kept up. And what I mean by that is the information to the public, right? Everyone, when they think hearing aid, they think their grandpa's World War II kind of thing, where it's this big horn and it squeals and it whistles. Truly, hearing aids have come quite a long way and they've changed. And with the advent of artificial intelligence, as these applications get further advanced and further studied and further, applied to different areas of our day to day, hearing aids are not excluded from that in any way. There is one company called Phonak, and they're the first to integrate a form of artificial intelligence into the hearing aid, because it's still an aid. It's not a
Yeah,
miracle, it's not a
right.
cure, and it's never going to be like your natural ear, right? So as AI gets integrated into it, we are taking the steps and getting closer to more of that natural and personalized hearing, right? But yeah, no, technology advancements, the biggest issue that I see with it is that technology is advancing so fast that you can buy a new hearing aid today and then 6 months later a huge breakthrough happens and you feel like you're kind of stuck. And with the cost of hearing aids, I find that kind of makes people feel some type of way, right? It's one of
Yeah.
the objections or issues that we deal with on, well, what if I buy a hearing aid today because I need to treat this loss, and then 6 months later something better comes out, and it's just one of those things that you have to deal with in a clinic, right?
Got it. When you're working the retail location, are you able to run this solely, or do you have to have a associate up front? As people are getting into retail locations, they think about labor, right? And they think
Mhm.
about how many people need to be in this thing to actually make this operate. Can one physician, one tech, can they run this? Is that even possible? Or and what does that look like? Is that even doable?
Yeah. So I'll give you a few. Can I run? And this is not a brag in any way, right? In my clinic here in Sarasota, I average about 150 to 200 patients a week, depending on the time of year. So you figure that's about 30 patients a day. Now,
That's
have
incredible.
I been alone and been able to get the phones, get the door, check people in? Absolutely. Is it a little crazy? Sure. But a healthy clinic is, and we call them HCCs, like a patient care coordinator and a provider. And then once you cross a certain threshold, you want to have a tech on hand so that the provider can focus on, new patients coming in and answering those more in-depth questions, where a tech can handle cleaning the hearing aid, repairing a hearing aid, putting new filters, so on and so forth. Uh, um, at max capacity, 3 people. An incredibly busy office, maybe 4. But we're talking about a clinic that does, 50 to 60 patients a day, and that is a little bit more rare, but it has been, there are those, gems out there that are seeing that many people, but on average your clinic should have a minimum 2 people staffed, an HEC, secretary, patient care coordinator, whatever it is that you want to call it, and a licensed provider. Any more than that is just based on, your patient volume, the area that you're in, so on and so forth.
So when you're starting out, in a sense, as you're starting to gauge the business, it would make sense. You could start with a licensed provider
And that's
solely,
it.
and that's it,
Solely,
solely.
100%.
Are these open 7 days a week? I mean, how many days a week are these open?
So it really depends on you, what you're willing to do, right? But it's run basically like most doctors' offices, Monday
Got
through
it.
Friday, 9 to 5. If you want to be open on Saturdays, and I'll get into it a little bit more with you, but if you want to be open on Saturdays, you're more than welcome to. For the most part, though, if you're a provider yourself and you're looking to get into the business, right, and you want to offer something more or extra, you'll do 6 days a week instead of
Mhm.
5 days a week.
Got it.
But as an owner, right, you also don't want to burn out your provider.
Mhm.
So Monday through Friday, you give them the weekends off, and it's
It's a
smooth
sweet
sailing
deal,
for
man.
everyone.
It's a
Sweet
sweet
deal.
deal.
It's a sweet deal,
So,
especially in today's day and age.
yeah. So the other thing that I found interesting was, we talked about some data. We talked about numbers, which kind of blew my mind. You could be one provider running this retail brick and mortar location that sells hearing aids. Like, what are you seeing for sales volume? What does that look like?
So, I've been fortunate enough when I started with the company that I'm at now, even as a rookie, a newbie, right, half a year in, um, uh, I was averaging between 60 and $75,000 a month in sales, right? As that was as a rookie. As I've grown as a provider, as I've learned more, as I've studied more, because our license requires continued education, just like your surgeon or your dentist, right, or your eye doctor. In order for us to keep our medical board license, we have to do continued education because, you know, with new technology, new information, new discoveries, new treatment plans, we have to always be on top of that. But for example, that was a newbie, and now I've grown to, for example, last year in 24, my clinic did 1.2 million in sales,
1.2
right?
million.
Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. That was it, right?
I mean, it's crazy. It's like, because I come from restaurants,
Yeah, my
and
whole
so do
family.
you, your
So
whole
yeah, my
family,
whole
right? We've
family.
been in
Yeah,
restaurants. We're both Albanian, speak the
yeah,
language. We're second generation in this country, and that's what we did. We just ran
yeah.
restaurants and retail
That was it.
locations.
Yeah.
So when you tell somebody, you're like, I could do $1.2 million working 5 days a week in sales, 9 to 5. I mean, sign me up, man. I mean, it's
Yeah.
incredible. It's really remarkable. And
Yeah. Yeah. No, of that 1.2 million, right? And the profit margins are as good as a business idea can be, right?
yeah,
But a lot of those profit margins are paid upfront costs of service, right? So when you get a patient that comes in and gets a hearing aid, they're not only just purchasing a product, there's also a service attached to it. But what I have found is that the clinics that sell a product and then charge you per service, for whatever reason to the consumer, it's not as palatable, right? So I
Makes
just spent
sense.
X on this and now I got to pay you to clean it and maintain it and update it. The clinics that I have found to, and I've worked in 11 different clinics and 11 different demographics. It was just the nature of my career and how it evolved. The clinics that my competitors, at least that I've seen go in and out of business, were the ones that were selling the product for a lower dollar amount. So basic logic states that, oh, they're going to undercut you, they're going to win. But it wasn't the case. It was the patients that were paying one price for the product that included a service fee in that price, right? Because then it was a one-time cost. It's easier to stomach, and now you have lifetime service, at least for the life of the product, right? It's
Well,
not lifetime in terms of lifetime, but for the life of the product, you are prepaid and covered. Now, the average lifespan of a hearing aid 3 to 5 years, just because the nature of a hearing device, just like your eyeglasses, right? You wear them all day, every day. 3 to 5 years, you're going to get new glasses. They're going to break, they're going to bend, your eyes will get weaker, you need a new prescription, and so on and so forth. But at the very least, for that 3 to 5 year period, you are essentially earning a customer for life based on you, right? If you offer good service, they're more likely to rebuy from you, right? If you offered crappy service and that fee that they paid wasn't worth it, they're going to go to Joe Schmo down the street. So it really all depends on the provider that you have. One of the common things that I've heard in the industry is that it's never the area, it's always the provider, right? Hearing aids is not like a restaurant. Location is everything, right? You know it, I know it.
oh,
In the restaurant world or in most retail, your location is everything. But how many times have you gone to a doctor's office that was in the middle of nowhere,
yeah,
right? It's a whole different mentality when it comes to where you're located. It truly comes down to patient care and service. And before the internet, before insurances got on the game, man, this was an even sweeter deal.
yeah, sure,
Hearing aid was like the like a unspoken thing that only those who were in the know knew. We're
yeah.
talking about providers 15, 20 years ago were charging the same amount dollar wise 25, 30 years ago that we charge today. The prices haven't changed very much.
That's
It's been
incredible.
between $4,000 and $6,000 for a set of hearing aids for 30 plus years,
Wow.
right? But back then, there was no internet to compete with.
Yeah,
And even though we have lobbied for health insurances to cover some of it, they were smart too. They saw how much money these people were making, right? They decided to sell their own hearing aids, the same ones that brick and mortar sell, right?
got
The
it.
only issue is that it did well for a short period of time. Why? Because there was no brick and mortar for service. So they were buying the same hearing aid from like I said before, you're getting a hearing aid for cheaper going through your insurance and ordering them from them, but then you're getting dinged on service. 75 to $100 appointment, that adds up quick
That's
over the
amazing.
course of 3 years, right? Yeah, and then you're looking at an additional 1,500 to $2,500 of just fees.
Yeah. So it's like you're not really getting good service, and that's the key, man.
Yeah, that the industry has evolved. It's been service,
Yeah.
right? Who can offer the best service? And in today's day and age, you can get the same product on Temu, right? That's the hard thing about retail today.
Oh,
You
yeah.
can go to Amazon and find
Yeah.
anything you need. Me and my buddies, we had explored an option because the restaurant business, and this is kind of a sidebar, but we were looking at Alibaba for pizza restaurant supplies
Yeah.
and opening up an Amazon storefront, right? Cut out the, sazon and things like that.
Right.
Pizza boxes,
Get the
pizza
middleman out.
paddles, pizza cutters, and we were absolutely amazed at what you can find in China
Yeah.
on Alibaba,
It's
on
insane.
Temu, on Amazon. So in today's day and age, where you have unlimited options to buy the same product, it's all going to come down to customer experience,
Yeah.
customer care, and customer service.
So it sounds to me, and it makes sense, is your provider actually in this business is the key to your success,
Everything is
right?
everything.
It's
Having
everything.
the right person, you gotta have, unfortunately, right? You can be the smartest person, Alex. You can be the straight A student who knows everything about the ear, the brain, how
Right.
they work together, the way hearing. You can have someone who can program the hell out of a hearing aid,
Yeah.
right? Who
Doesn't matter.
understands frequencies and vibrations.
Yeah.
But if there is no personal bedside manner, as I call it, right? That is everything. When it comes to your health, you don't want the doctor that can tell you the most. You
No.
want the doctor or the provider that can make you feel as comfortable as possible while also offering you the help.
So you've got a retail location doing about $1.2 million a year. You can do that with one provider and maybe a part-time HCC, right?
Yeah. I have also at that level, I need a full-time HCC. I have a part-time lab tech that comes in 2 days a week to, help with hearing aid repairs,
Sure.
replacement parts,
Sure. Got it.
basic, very basic monotonous things. But I have a full, unfortunately, when you get to that size, I want to say 400 to 500K a year. Once you cross that threshold,
You need a
right,
second person.
you've built a patient base and you need someone that can answer phones while you're with a patient, because those patients, that base that you have, the customer care and the customer service, remember, that's everything. That's the whole thing. And you don't want people getting a voicemail at 2 o'clock on a Monday when they need you because they can't hear.
That's why the retail location makes sense, right? Because they can go somewhere, get the
They
service
can
that
go.
they need, and they can make the connection with somebody that understood and went through the process the right way to make them understand how their hearing aid should be working, right?
And then when you were saying about the schooling, when you were
Yeah.
saying, I don't mean to cut you off, but
No,
I,
it's
I
okay.
just kind of, when
No,
you
go
were
for it.
saying about the schooling, right, there is a sales aspect to my job. There's
Right.
a medical side, right,
Mhm.
where I'm, a hearing provider, a hearing care professional. But then there's a sales aspect because of you can buy hearing aids anywhere now. They
Yeah.
even make over the counter hearing aids. They're non prescriptive, but they're still hearing aids, right?
Right.
So there is a sales aspect. So finding a provider that can blend the lines between a medical professional while also having, and let's be honest, everything today is sales.
It's sales.
Whether you're in a restaurant
Yeah.
business,
Doesn't
whether you're in
matter.
a clothing business,
Yeah.
construction business, there's a sales aspect where, hey, there's going to be a pitch involved. Choose me, don't go to
Yeah.
my competitor, and
Yeah.
here's why.
Yeah.
Right?
It's a big, big deal. And I agree with that 100% because the person behind the counter makes the difference in no matter what
Everything.
business you're in.
Emotional connection is as big a part in sales or in any industry
Absolutely.
as much as your product is, right?
Absolutely.
There's as big of a piece of that puzzle.
Absolutely. So I want to kind of talk a little bit about the build out costs, man. Like here we go. We've got a $1.2 million business that's generating. You're doing when you first started out, it was like 75,000 a month, which is not chump change. Okay. And you sit there and you go, okay, you're running this operation with one or two people all day, 9 to 5, right? Which is low costs on your labor. That makes sense to me. What have you seen build out costs? I mean, are we talking just like office space? Is that what we're talking here?
It's just office space. You need a private room for the provider and the
Sure.
patient because there's
Right.
HIPAA involved. There's medical records and things like that. There has to be at the very least one lab. So you cut out a piece of the office space for a lab, and then you need one consultation room with a soundproof booth built into it. You can either build out a little closet in the corner, or you can purchase what's called a whisper room. It all depends on where you're getting the space, the location of the space, right? All the legwork on demographics and where to open and why there and the location. And they use
Yeah.
Publix as an anchor, both for foot traffic, and Publix is always going to be the landlord of whatever center that they're at. They're the landlord, and again, just like anything in life, right? It's about who you know. You get in with the right people. For example, the company that I work for, they have a relationship with Publix so that if a new Publix opens up, it's one phone call, that spot is yours, right? But with that
Yeah.
comes higher cost per square foot, right? You can have something $25, $35 a square foot, or you can have something that's $85 a square foot. You know what I mean? That's, yeah, location doesn't really matter so much. I mean, that's kind of a silly statement, but
Yeah.
here's why. If the demographics are right, and what I mean by that is, I'm sure you've been in Florida for a couple of years now. I'm sure you've seen public centers open up
Yeah.
seemingly in the middle of nowhere. You're like, what? Why is this here? Right? And it's really all comes down to, just like with any
So if you
business,
were
the
to sum up
demographics. And
your
so you're
demographic, if you were to say this is kind of our customer base, like what does that look like?
percentage of 65 plus communities or 55 plus communities, and percentage of how many people in that area or over
Florida's a
the
good
age of
market for that.
65. Simply. You know what I mean? It's one of the best markets for it. And other states are starting to catch on, right? States like Texas, Missouri, Tennessee, New Orleans, Alabama, places you would have never thought in a million years are starting to sprout.
You got to find a good provider, which is probably the most difficult thing to do, right? The provider's got to have this kind of
Yes.
like almost like this 30-70 split of like being a really good provider, but also a good salesperson at the same time, right? Which has to really, if you can sell and connect with people, obviously that's the
Yeah.
key. So that's huge. You can build this thing out, for 100K, and you could pump anywhere from 1 to $1.5 million out of these things.
So here's the thing. And one of the benefits of you can be, there's one of two clinics, right? You can be a clinic that has stock, or you can be a clinic that orders per customer, right? It's a 3-day waiting period,
Mhm.
which I like. It keeps your overhead costs. There's no upfront. Your largest expense by far, the biggest chunk of that profit
Yeah.
margin, is marketing. Marketing is incredibly expensive,
So what are you
but
guys doing? Like
that is your
like you doing
biggest
paper Google
expense.
ads, Facebook ads, Instagram?
So as the general public gets more tech savvy, Instagram, not, it hasn't really hit Instagram yet. Some places are starting to. Facebook, right? For the most part, it's still newspaper and direct mailers. And yeah, they're still, so newspapers, direct mailers, and then existing patient base. And remember, new technology is always coming out. It behooves you to not at least let a patient know, hey, listen, I know you just got your hearing aids a year ago. I'll tell you what, I'll give you a great trade in. There's this new technology that came out. I understand you just spend a nice chunk of money on it, but this new technology can do XYZ for you. You're an existing patient, your hearing loss requires it or demands it, and now there's technology for it. Just try them out here, But that's the
Yeah.
provider, right? You have providers that don't make those phone calls, and they're doing 25, 30K a month. And then you have providers that do make those phone calls, and they're doing 75, 85, 100K a month. That's what the provider is, the key, who you have in there, right? Um, but it all comes down to your marketing.
It's a huge expense, obviously, because your customer acquisition costs are right. They're not cheap. So you got to get yourself out there. But it's interesting
Yeah,
because of the model, you're using kind of old school marketing tactics because of the demographic, which makes sense, right? You think about direct mail nowadays, you're like, who the hell uses that? But believe it or not, an older demographic goes to their mailbox
yeah.
and they pull out, they have a newspaper, and that's what they're used to, right? So that makes
And they're reading their mail. Whereas me and you,
it's
right? Me and
garbage.
you get a mail the second that we see it's not, yeah, garbage. You know what I mean? So, eventually the market will have to, or the models or the strategies will have to evolve, just like anything. And especially now they are starting to evolve more and more as well, because What people don't understand is most medical industry stuff, businesses or medical industry products or services are not even remotely prepared for the amount of people that are about to retire. The largest population in the US is coming
That's
into
incredible. So then,
retirement age.
yeah, I'd love to hear them.
And I pulled up some numbers here. Almost 80 million people in America are about to retire
That's
between
incredible.
now and 15 years from now, right? It's about to be this like weird golden age of medical service and medical products necessity. And hasn't even started fully yet. And try to
Oh,
make a doctor's appointment right now here in
yeah, it's
Florida.
impossible. It's
We'll
impossible.
see you in 6 months,
It's crazy.
8 months. 10 months. We're not available. We're so underserved. But the hearing aid market alone is underserved by, I think the last numbers that came out was over 35% underserved today. That's for today's numbers. So that just means
Yeah,
anyone can get
that's what
in on this and get a
just that
piece,
alone. Look,
right?
that's the kind of stuff I
Anyone.
want my viewers to hear, right? Because it's like this is an opportunity for somebody that's about to happen. You're an individual that has been in the trenches, that has seen this, that have seen
Mhm.
this grow, seeing what it's capable of. It's a
Mhm.
low entry point, not expensive to get in. Find your provider. Do you have any tactics of how you can find a good provider? How do you find that person?
You know what?
Yeah, I'd love to hear
So
that. I'd love to hear
here's
that.
how I was discovered. I'll tell you my story. Okay, I didn't know a single thing about. I'd never worked. I mean, I guess I can't say I never worked in sales.
Got
I
it.
did door to door vacuum sales 15 years ago, right? For a short period of time. All comes down to human connection. Now, you and I come across a bunch of people. How many people do you see in the restaurant, employees or customers, that you kind of start talking with them and all of a sudden they're connecting with you in a weird way, right? That is all you're looking for. If you can find someone that
Mhm.
like, whoa, this guy can really connect with you.
Yeah,
Hey, he's got some really awesome social skills, or something has an air about him, right? He's not
sure.
arrogant, or he's not playing to be too smart. But anyway, so the way I was found was there was this guy, Joe. His name was Joe, and he was a hearing aid specialist like myself, and he started 35 years ago, and he went along the way, and then he opened one clinic, and then two clinics, and then 15 clinics, and then he sold it, and then he chilled for a year, and then he did it again
Made
for
a fortune.
35 clinics,
Made a
sold
fortune.
it. Like, he's replicated this over and over and
That's
over.
incredible.
This is his fourth company that he sold, right? That's how, here's this one guy. And so one of my friends pointing like, "Oh, that guy, this is his story, man. He's made quite a
50
living. He
old.
started at 55, 55, 35, 55 years old. He got
So
licensed and started this.
it's
And he's
crazy. It's never too late,
55,
man. You
30,
see that?
30
55
years
years
ago.
old. This guy's
He
building hearing aid
never
companies
too
and
late.
flipping them.
55 years old. Built this out. He's 85 years old now. He has built and sold 4 hearing aid companies. And when I say built and sold, I'm not talking like one clinic. He's built a minimum of 15 to 30 and up to 65 clinics, and then has sold it to, a manufacturer or another private firm or whatever the case. Anyway, so I saw this guy, and at that point in my life was a very interesting point, and I didn't really have any real direction or anything. I was still trying to figure out, what am I going to do? How do I make my mark? And I watched this guy go into a deli, and I was like, you know what? Let me at least introduce myself. Let me just go say hi to this guy, right? Everyone knows him in this new town that I'm in Florida. I had just moved here. I was like, hey, I was like, is your name Joe? And he was like, yeah. I was like, oh, my name's, Alfred. I was like, I've heard a couple of stories about you, what you've done. And he was kind of taken back, but because I was a little
Yeah.
aggressive with how I approached him, and I was like, is this true? Is this really like what you've done? And I started like asking, I stopped talking and I was just asking him questions. And we sat down. I paid for his sandwich, even though
So
this guy could bury me in money, and
street
but it was
smart.
the
Yeah. The
it was
restaurant.
my
Hell
street,
yeah,
like
man.
my restaurant history, right? let me get your sandwich. That people skill that we learn in restaurants
100%.
is probably the best education that I've ever had in my life. Right. And I bought him a sandwich, and we sat down, we ate, and we were laughing. And by the end of it, I had connected with this man, and he was like, "What are you doing for work?" And I was like, "Honestly, Joe, I was about to ask you for a job. I just said it like that, just as a joke." And he's like, "Man, you got a great personality." He's like, "Took some balls." He's like, "You're not really afraid of talking to people, are you?" I was like, "Honestly, I used to get in a lot of trouble at school because I wouldn't stop talking." And he was like, "What are you doing Monday?" And he's like, "Come in on Monday to XYZ location up in Palm Coast." And he's like, go see this gentleman. I think his name was, oh my God, what was his name? Eric. And he was like, go see him. He'll set you up, right? And they signed me up with the state, man. He fronted the cost for the year and a half internships, bought me my textbooks, showed me the way, and then I was off to the races, right? So when it comes to like scouting talent, and as a senior now in the company, when it comes to hiring and scouting talent, I look for the guys that can just talk to me, right? It's a little different because I'm holding interviews now. So other specialists are people who have done this, and I can tell the guys
Right.
who just know the medical side, right? And I can tell the guys who are just salesmen,
Yeah, it's true.
and those don't work either. And then it's the guys that I can just kind of have a back and forth
Yeah.
with and feel genuine connection with.
And it's true,
Those are
man.
the guys that
Look,
really,
I
those are the
love what you
magic.
said
That's where the
because it's
magic
true. It's
happens,
like when
right?
you're in the restaurant space, it's like you don't realize, especially if you work in restaurants, it just makes your people skills, it elevates it to a whole new level.
It hones it in and sharp. Until, like I said, I've had three different educations in my life. I've been to school, I've been an intern, I've been a journeyman, and I've
Of
had
course.
a little bit of a street smart education as well. Of those educations, man, growing up working in the industry, restaurant industry, hands down has quite literally carried me through so many different aspects of my life, right? Being able to feed someone or serve
Yeah.
someone, or prepare food, and the whole aspect of a restaurant from A to Z is designed and people focused, that your skills, your social skills, your your judgment skills are just super honed in and sharpened. I truly accredit my success as a specialist to my
I
history
know
in the
you've been
restaurant
a specialist now for
field.
4 years and loved what we talked about and some really interesting stuff in there and some creative stuff for somebody to look at and be like, hey man, like this is something that I could look into possibly doing, right? Which is really because it's like a low entry point and you do your
Mhm.
homework, you do your due diligence, you can really get in this field. But really, and we dabbled in on it, but I mean, I guess I got to want to get a feel from you as to, do you really feel like it's going to be something massive here over the next 5 or 10 years?
Whoever can offer the whoever can offer best
Exactly.
personalized concierge type
Yeah.
level service is going to succeed, because of what I said
Yeah. Yeah.
before,
It's
you can
true,
buy
man.
hearing aids everywhere now, right? So the goal is all about patient and user experience, right? As hospitality is still key, but hearing loss affecting so many people, right? And as this newer generation comes into retirement, they're
Yeah.
a little bit more savvy and they're a little bit more guarded,
Pre-
right? Everyone has been trying to sell these years.
Yeah.
Now, everyone's trying to sell you something. So it's going to come down to what company
Yeah.
can provide the best experience, right? And the best service. Because hearing aids are not perfect. They're not miracles. They're far behind it. But for those clinics that are doing 1.2, 1.5, right?
Yeah.
Those clinics are offering an experience and creating a patient base and return customers. But the thing is now, the where the contention lies is going to be in, excuse me,
Mhm.
internet insurances, right? Everyone's trying to get in on this wave. So But what I do believe is, I believe that
Yeah.
the internet is a little bit ahead of its time. I think purchasing medical devices and things like that over the internet is going to be more of yours and my generation, right? I feel like our parents, your parents, my parents, they're kind of coming
They
to,
need that human connection.
they
They
still
need
want
it.
this.
And believe it or not, there's something
They need
inside me
that
that
human
says
connection,
we're
right?
we're we're
So
gonna over time. I think even though we're so savvy with these computers, we're gonna want to be in front of somebody. At least I know I want to.
you have these internet companies, right?
Yeah,
That these hearing aids are Bluetooth capable now, right? So you have these companies that can, you bought hearing aids from me.
that's
I can be
insane.
talking to you right now and
No
programming your
connection.
hearing aids, right? But there's no
Yeah.
connection.
No.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You're not telling me about
Yeah.
your family.
Right.
How was your weekend? You're not comfortable with me. There's these companies in the Philippines, in India, selling hearing aids on the internet, right? Yeah, for dirt cheap. Don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
like undercutting us by a
No.
lot. But why aren't they succeeding? There's a reason. There's a reason why they're not succeeding, right? So it's really, as the business evolves, it's all going to come down to
Are you seeing more providers
customer
coming in
and
online?
patient
Are you seeing more
experience.
coming in?
Because right
People are
now,
going.
overnight, dude, they're populating. They're, because the manufacturer of these things,
Yeah.
to them, it's just a unit. You're gonna buy 1,000 units from me? Here you go. Matter of fact, here's a cheaper price. Now you're just a warehouse. You don't have a provider. You don't have anything. You
Wow.
outsource the provider, right? With all this Zoom and internet, it's all outsourced. But why are they not succeeding, right? There's a reason,
That's
and it all
awesome.
comes down to that human connection. Truly, one of my good buddies, right? Another thing, one of my good buddies, he's in the Delray Boca area. So any of you people that are in that area, or you need someone, or you have a family member struggling with hearing, renowned hearing centers. He went a step above. He does a full concierge service, right? He's mobile. He'll come to your house. He has everything he needs to test you in your own private home. It's not a soundproof booth, but the technology has advanced now to where he can give you an accurate test, right? He's on call during the weekends. He's on call during the week. There's no 9 to 5, right? You'll pay for his services just like you would pay anywhere else. He's, if anything, he's a little bit cheaper than anyone else, and he's crushing the game, right? He's offering that
That's awesome.
10-star
Good for him.
user experience, right? How many retired people can't even drive or come, or are not healthy enough to come to the office? He's going above and beyond, and he's killing it over there. Renowned hearing centers. He's doing a hell of a job, truly, truly. And he, like I said, that's that next level customer concierge service, right? That's what it's going to come down to. Realistically, that's what it's going to come down to, because the money is there to be made, right? It's all about who's
So that's
who's
why I
going to go
found it
get it,
exciting when I
right?
was talking to you and you were telling me all about the data and all the retirement of the next wave of so many millions of people and how this is an industry that's going to be around a while. You're starting to see them. It's funny because after I had that conversation with you, I'm starting to see them pop up now. I'm noticing they're everywhere, and it's kind of
Everywhere,
like wow. I'm like
everywhere.
now I'm starting to get my head around after having this conversation with you a while back. I was like, this is really turning into something. I mean, this is and it's a good opportunity for somebody, especially for somebody that wants to be a provider. There's going to be a lot of room for you to get a job somewhere, or for you to team up with
Hmm.
somebody, or for you to get involved in some way, right? Or if you're a business owner, this is a wonderful opportunity to
Yeah.
get into a low entry business. Look, it's nothing is foolproof, but it's pretty amazing that
Hmm.
you could do over $1 million
Of
with two
course.
people. I mean,
Hmm.
you can do that. That's napkin math. I mean, you can make money. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it not only is the entry point sustainable and easy to get into, especially here in the state of Florida, getting
It's a year.
licensed is a year of school. You have a son, he turns 18, 19 years old, and maybe college is not for him, but he can grind it out for a year and a half under someone's tutelage, under someone's, board certification. get him
Of
licensed, right?
course.
Sure, there's going to be obstacles along the way. You're going to run. I remember my very
Yeah.
first eval, I sweat through my shirt. I was so nervous. Do you know what I mean? But just like anything, see, to actually get going and get started, my buddy at Renowned Hearing Centers, the guy's crushing it. He's licensed for 1 year. He just started a year ago. He just got licensed and just,
It's incredible.
you know what I mean? He just started. And
That's
we're talking
incredible. No, it
25,
doesn't
30 grand
matter.
a
It's
month.
sales.
Not all
He's just
profit,
started.
not all profit, but he just started. He just started. We're talking less than
30K a month.
5 months, less than 6 months.
Good for him.
He got it up and running, and that's a one-person show. No HTC, no. He doesn't even have an office yet. You know what I mean? He is offering strictly he saw a need
Yeah.
that no one else
He
saw,
took it to another
like
level. He just
concierge
took it to another level, which
mobile
is huge.
service. You, and like it's a good way to start. Is that sustainable? No, because then you can't be driving everywhere, right? And you can't really grow that. You can start the brand like that, but again, the
Yeah.
low barrier of entry, the low barrier of entry. You
Mm.
don't have money for a clinic, do a mobile service. 10 grand gets you everything you need to
That's
test
genius right
somebody.
there. Yeah, it's true. No, it's true.
What, you know what I mean? Other than a
Nowhere.
car wash,
Nobody.
where is 10 grand
It's
going to
true,
start a
man.
business for you? You know, so it's he's renowned hearing centers. He's wonderful, and
Love
he
it.
really offers a
Love it.
white
Love
glove
it.
approach to the concierge. For anyone listening in that wants to is looking at this big picture,
That's the
the
magic
magic
number.
number 15 clinics. I don't know why. I'm still figuring out, but for whatever reason, and I've seen it time and time again, 15 clinics eliminates the need to have a top-notch provider in every single one, right? You're moving enough units for the manufacturer to get a huge discount on product, and you have enough clinics in a concentrated amount of space that your marketing dollars are being maximized and optimized, and you have a
So not
larger
only
share
that,
of
but
the
then your
market
operations are
wherever you
easier
go.
because you can have providers and you can have your HCCs go to different locations and over there. Yeah, it's huge. It's huge.
Someone quits, you have this provider, right? This guy quits, this provider covers here Monday, Tuesday, covers here Wednesday, for whatever reason. Yeah. For whatever reason, based on those metrics alone,
That's
15 clinics
incredible.
is like the threshold to like a well-oiled machine as a owner operator who's not licensed, right? Someone that just wants to get
Yeah.
into this, he's gonna have to partner up with specialists because they're gonna be like,
Sure.
so you
Yeah.
break them off as something, a skin in the game. You give them skin in the game. Uh, 15 clinics and 2, 3 guys, a money guy and 2 providers,
Huge.
right, can do it pretty big. Two money
Yeah.
guys
It's
and five
huge.
providers
Yeah. That's
can go even
awesome.
bigger.
No, man, this is
Just
good
that's like
stuff,
with
dude.
anything else. You know what I mean? So that's the magic.
That's
That's the
good.
number. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. 15 clinic. I don't know why. I didn't come up with that number on my own. I have through networking now. I have met enough people that were in this industry as owner operators, not just specialists. And the most one
Yeah.
person can like you need partners in this because I've seen the most one person can do is 2 or 3 clinics. Once you get past that, you need multiple heads. There's so much going on, but 3 to 5 partners can do a huge undertaking.
Dude, if you,
They can
but
open up
you could do it
15
on a
clinics
napkin, dude. You're
rather
talking
quickly.
about if you do 15 clinics, it's $100,000 build out. So that's 1.5 million to build those out, right? And they're doing
Mhm.
a million a pop. That's 15 million a year, dude. That's serious money.
Mhm. And your payroll. Here's the other side too, right? There are companies that offer people
Sure.
like myself. Like I have a salary and commission, but when I
Wow.
started, I was pure commission. And most providers, good specialists, want to be pure commission. So now you don't even need to worry about payroll, right? Your provider eats what he kills.
Look, I don't know if we can share the amount of percentages what the profit is, but I can tell you right now, it is astronomical. the profit margins. It's astronomical.
Yeah,
North of 40. That's more than
it's
enough. So
north of
that's huge
40%.
for a business to have. Even a
North, and
40%
that's
margin is a
yeah,
game changer.
and that is yeah,
Yeah, that's
and that
conservative.
is
That's
on the
excellent.
more conservative side, right? That's conservative. That's you maximizing every dollar to marketing, right? That's you maximizing marketing. Now you can always do more. You can offer, you know, that profit margin. Yes, profit is good as a business owner, but you can also separate yourself from your competitors by using some of that. Those profit margins, the places that offer just a little bit extra, right? You take a
Yeah.
cut. Here's a free
Yeah.
accessory.
No, it's awesome. It's the
Here's
right
a
thing to
gift
do.
card. Thank you for your business. It's the right thing to do. Is the bigger piece of pie you get, you give a
Yeah.
little back.
It's huge. And that's what it's all about,
Customers are
man. At the
so
end of the day, you're
appreciative,
making, you're
right?
impacting people's lives. You're making people's lives better and you're making money at the same time, man. I mean, it's an awesome thing.
It's literally win-win, and especially with all
Yeah.
the ties to cognitive decline and cognitive function, the increased rates of Alzheimer's, dementia, right? These things have all been proven and linked to the loss of hearing or the loss of sight. And why? When a person can't hear well, right? How many times do
Yeah.
you ask someone to
Yeah.
repeat themselves before you smile and nod? Oh, yeah, yeah. Right. So then when you find yourself constantly asking, you tend to fall back. You don't partake in
Mhm.
conversation, you don't partake in socialization. And these are some of the leading causes of dementia and cognitive decline
Yeah,
is
man.
not being social anymore. Not only that, these numbers are going to continue to increase because when you and I were kids, Alex, we were outside till the lights came out. Now, these kids are not socializing anymore. So
Big.
there's all these factors that play a part. And, now, and then you add
Yeah.
I can't hear you
It's
or
tough.
I can't even see you.
Yeah.
So on top of that, you're even less social. So, truly, you're helping that grandparent hear her grandkids. You're helping that husband
No, it's
stop fighting
huge.
with his
It's
wife.
true.
And you know what I mean?
Well, you might have like
I,
you could
I
have like a
make the
wife
joke.
button. Huh?
I say
What
this to
she's
every
saying, so
one
I
of
don't
my
want to hear
patients.
it. Put it back.
Yeah, yeah. I
Hope
make
my wife's
yeah,
not
yeah.
listening because I'll hear
I
that
say that joke at least
one.
5 times a day. Yeah, yeah. 100%. I say that joke at least 5 times a day. And I always
Yeah,
joke and I say, we do
yeah, right,
couples
right,
counseling here, so
exactly.
bring your wife in with you. Yeah,
Oh, it's good, man. Well, listen,
and
yeah,
but that's what it's all about. It's about having fun with the patient, being excited about it. And you said it perfect. It's got to be a perfect blend
yeah.
between knowing what it is that you're
No,
talking about,
you gotta know what
right?
you're
If
talking
I'm in
about.
there bumbling and fumbling over, you got to know the product, you got to know what you're talking about, but then you got to be able to pivot into some
Yeah,
levity, right? Some laughter, some connection, genuine human connection. Part of my success, I believe, is I take notes while I'm
yeah.
telling them.
Remember it
What's their
all.
if they mention their grandkids' name?
Yeah,
Cool. One of the
yeah. It's huge, man. Those are huge, huge things. It makes that personal connection, man. Listen, man, I love all this stuff, man. Alfred, this was really, really incredible. I think it was an exciting and I think it was a lot of value to give to somebody that's looking to understand the hearing
Yeah.
aid market and understand the business of it all. And I appreciate you, man, coming on board and talking to us. I'm sure this won't be a one and done. I'm going to
Course.
love to have you come back on. This was
Yeah, please.
awesome.
I'd
And
love it. I
I
had a lot
appreciate
of
you
fun,
coming
man.
on and
Seriously.
discussing this and being open about the business because at the end of the day it's like we want to bring value, man, to people so they can kind of see it and understand it, and it's an awesome thing.
Mhm.
So I appreciate that, man.
Yeah. I appreciate you inviting me, man. I really appreciate what you're doing here. I think it's awesome. Just getting knowledge out. Knowledge is power. Knowledge is everything, right? And there's, just like myself, I'm sure someone may hear this that never
That's the
even
impact we
thought
want to
about
make, man, and
hearing
I
aids.
appreciate. Thanks so much, Alfred.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Peace,
Awesome.
brother.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it.